Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to the ninth edition, the ninth session under our masterclass series. We've been conducting this series of sessions across various topics in management that traverse operations, finance. We've touched upon topics from storytelling to business marketing, value investing, and a lot more. In today's session, we're going to be focusing on the field of operations and analytics. The session today is on business transformations that have been done using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and analytics. I guess over the years, analytics and AI, ML, these are terminologies that we've been hearing very frequently. These are also concepts that have been powering businesses to do much more better. There is no longer a concept. In fact, I was just about reading a couple of days back about how time management is not something that is such a big worry today, because you have so many apps, you have so many things that are powered by technology that can help you through so many other things as well. And businesses today are finding out technologies which are new, which can make a difference, and at the same time are using it to their benefit in terms of transforming themselves to in a very I think, if I may go a little philosophical, from a caterpillar to a butterfly, the way that they've been able to take them across from one component in their life cycle, business life cycle, to the other. So to talk to us about this topic, we have with us Professor Swapnajit Chakrabarty. Sir is a professor for operations and analytics at Flame University. He completed his FPM in information systems from IIM Indore and has more than 2 decades of academic and industry experience across the entire field. He will also be joined by our student, our second year student of the MBA program, Nisha, who has operations as a minor specialization, and she will be sharing her part of the entire experience as well. So without further delay, I'd like to pass this over to you so that you could take our attendees through the topic today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Anju, for your introduction about your myself as well as AIML. It was really good. So let me share my screen. So first of all, good evening to all of you, and welcome to this talk on business transformation using AIML and analytics. Right. So AI and machine learning analytics have actually touched almost every aspect of our life today. So if you shop at Amazon, or order your food using Swiggy or Zomato, or let's say you are chatting with your friends using Facebook, or you are talking to your personal assistant Alexa, right? So in all these cases, you are actually using the power of AI, right? So industries have also realized the power of AI, and they have started adopting these technologies. So it's very imperative today that the managers, aspiring managers, as well as the current managers, they should acquire these skills, right, to be successfully carrying out their business, right? So here is the agenda for today. We start with a brief introduction about the topic that we have introduced. And then we will go on and see how the AI adoption status is today and the challenges it is facing. Then we will take a few interesting case studies, and we will see how AI/ML analytics has been applied for business transformation. And then Nisha, who is a second year MBA student, she will be sharing her experience about learning these technologies at Flame. And then, of course, in the end, we have Q&A. So let me ask you a question first, right? So when we talk about AI, what picture comes to your mind, right? So I think the common perception about AI is something which I am projecting on the screen right now, right? We think about humanoids, robots that we have seen probably in Star Wars, in other sci-fi movies, or in games, right? So these robots, we think, and they can actually perform all the actions that humans can perform, right? For example, so these are basically, applications of artificial general intelligence, right? So these robots can actually perform, multiple tasks like vision, language, learning, movement, and even thinking and emotion. They can show and express emotion as well. But when we talk about AI application in business domain, we basically talk about a specific application, right? For example, a chatbot, right? A chatbot which is used today for handling the customer queries, right? So that is one specific application of AI, and the chatbot is supposed to do that specific task very well, right? Another example is object recognition, right? So any AI algorithm that we are using today for object recognition, that algorithm is performing that specific task very well. So similarly, there are many other examples. So like credit card fraud detection, right? So this is another example of AI in business, right? Smart warehouse management using robotics and all that, right? So there are self-driving cars or even, the language translations, right? So in all these cases, what we see is that these applications of AI essentially performs one specific task very well, and these are trained to perform that task only, right? So these are unlike the artificial general intelligence or sci-fi concept of AI, which can perform, everything that humans can do. Now, this is an example of artificial narrow intelligence, right? ANI. So whenever we talk in the context of business application, we talk about these kind of AI applications, right? So keep that in mind. Now, there are many digital technologies which are driving changes across industries today. So some of these are like cloud, Internet of Things, blockchain, social media, and AI, of course. Now, the way I look at it, these technologies is essentially the following. See, cloud, Internet of Things, blockchain, social media, all these are essentially the data generators, right? So they are helping or generating the big data. And when you want to analyze that data, when you want to mine or extract knowledge from that data, you have to use AI/ML or analytics. So the way to position this is the following, right? So all these technologies are essentially creating as data producers, and AI/ML analytics is actually the consumer of the data, and then generating knowledge or pattern from this data, which is so very important today for decision making. Now, AI market, very briefly, it's very, very promising. Across the globe, it's projected to grow at 200 billion US dollar by 2026. So this is a very good CAGR of 33%. Even in India, this is supposed to grow very well, right? And the application areas are mostly machine learning, computer vision, natural language processing, and robotics. And the segments, the industry segments which are adopting AI are automotive, healthcare, BFSI, digital business. These are the top adopters of AI. And these will be driving, the changes which are coming in the next decade. Now, AI has multiple dimensions, or rather multiple components. For example, machine learning, neural networks, robotics, NLP or natural language processing, expert systems, right? Some of you may have heard about these components, right? So when we talk about AI, please keep in mind, we have to actually understand these technologies. So if you want to pick up and understand AI technology, you have to actually learn machine learning. And as part of that, you may learn about neural networks, right, and natural language processing. And then based upon your application, you decide whether you are going to use natural language processing or robotics, right? So it's like that. So there are many components of AI, and we have to pick and choose which one we are going to use for our application. Now, how we build AI models, this is a very involved process. So here, what I can say is that very briefly, this is the flow, right? First, what you do, you collect the data. Please remember, AI algorithms are based on data, right? So the data has to be domain specific, task specific. So for example, if you want to, predict which product your customer is going to like, in that case, what kind of data you will collect? You will collect all the past transactions of that specific customers, right? So let's say if you want to identify or tag a particular image, right? In that case, what will be your input data? It will be a set of images. So if you want to talk to the customer using a chatbot, so in that case, the data will be a set of language tokens or phrases or sentences, right? So you have to be very careful when you actually collect the data, right? So that is the first step. The second step is the training of the data, right? You have to train the model, for that specific task for which you use this input data. Now, once the model is built, you test the model, validate it, and then deploy the model in the workflow, right? Now, this is one complete cycle. You have to do the upgradation of the AI model at regular intervals using the new input data, right? So in short, in brief, this is the flow to build the AI models. Now here you can see the training of the model is very, very important. So the training is essentially related to machine learning. So we are helping the machine to learn, and the machine is learning using the data that you are giving as input to the model. This is very, very important. Your model is as good as the data. Please remember that. That's why data is so very important. The data quality is so very important. Right? Now, AI has actually, this machine learning, AI analytics, it has introduced a new paradigm of innovation. Why? Because see, what we are doing here is essentially giving some input data to a model. That model, let's say, is a neural network model, right? And then we are training that specific model for that specific task, right? And it's the model which is actually extracting patterns from that input data and learning from that data, right? So the theory that you are building is actually driven by the learning process. So it's a bottom-up kind of innovation rather than top-down. So you don't think about like, this is going to be, my conclusion, right? This is what I'm going to prove. It's not like that. It's totally different. You basically learn from the data. So that's why Peter Norvig, who was fellow at Google, he once told, this important, this very famous line that unreasonable effectiveness of data, right? So if you use more and more data, your decision making, your prediction, your learning will be much, much better. So it's a different kind of innovation which managers find very easy to adopt in a way, right? So the theory building is driven by learning process by the model, right? Now, so the questions we are going to take in the end. So, yeah. Now, in this context, we should also understand, the difference of AI/ML and business analytics, right? Please remember, business analytics is essentially the traditional data analysis that is done using the spreadsheet tools, right? Or the BI tools based on data warehouse, right? So this is what was called business analytics. Now, business analytics focuses more on multidimensional descriptive analysis of historical data for post-mortem purpose, right? So if let's say you see that your revenue is down for last 3 quarters and you want to find out the reason for that, you basically go back and check all the transactions of the customers and see where the sales is down, right? So this is basically your multidimensional analysis. You are doing a post-mortem kind of analysis. Now, with emergence of predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics, which uses the AI/ML algorithms, the boundary of AI/ML and analytics is actually fading away today, right? So, but still AI/ML remains as the superset of machine learning with many algorithms such as deep learning, swarm intelligence, reinforced learning, and transfer learning, which are used only in the context of high-end AI applications. These are not used in the business analytics context as such. So you can see there are overlaps, yes, but still there are some difference you should be aware of. Now, these are some of the analytics applications. Most of it are in the predictive analytics domain where there is an overlap of analytics and AI. So, you can see that product recommendation, sentiment analysis, right, prediction of stock price. So, in all these cases, you are either using, deep learning, or you are using the natural language processing kind of technology, which belongs to actually AI. Now, since we are talking about business transformation, so let me clarify, what do we mean by business transformation? So transformation is a change that we all understand. And in business transformation, we are talking about some kind of change which impacts the processes within the organization, the people within the organization, and the value generation of the organization. So we are basically looking at an intrinsic transformation, right? Please remember, business transformation can occur, or happen across, industry, right? But here we are focusing on the intrinsic transformation of business, where, introduction of this kind of digital technology is impacting the business processes, and in the process it also impacting the people who are now open to, new learning, and also it's generating better value for the customers of the organization. So it's a, real big change, right? That's what we call a business transformation. Now, so these are some of the examples. Let's say one physical retail store moves from offline to online. So this is a big change, right? This is a big transformation for business, right? The entire business model changes, right? So this is one example. Another example, maybe a software company introduces a chatbot to handle all HR queries, right? So this is a common practice today, right? So this is where you are changing one specific business process, right? But the impact is actually, felt by the stakeholders, the employees, right? And then there is another example I have quoted here, which is a financial services company replaces paper-based records by cloud-based digital documents, right? So this is also a big change for that organization, and it's going to impact, the way the organization does business, right? So all these are examples of business transformations. Now, as we have already discussed, this can happen, at multiple layers. So one layer is, of course, you change all business processes of your organization. So for example, when you move from offline to online retail, you are changing all the processes of the business, right? You can also change one or more business processes, but not all. That can also be considered as a business transformation, provided the impact is huge. So that's, the bottom line. The impact should be felt across the entire organization and by stakeholders, and it's going to impact, the processes, the people, and the value generation process. Right? So this is about the business transformation. Now, having understood these basic things, let me now move on to the AI adoption and the challenges. So think about it. Why industries would want to adopt AI? What are the big reasons? It's very simple. Industries are always interested in reducing cost and increasing revenue, right? So that is one of the top reasons why industries want to adopt AI today. And there is also competitive advantage. Why? Because this is very competitive world today, because if you come up with one product today, the competitor is going to come up with another product in maybe 2-3 months from now. So if you have to remain in business and ensure competitive advantage, then you have to really innovate, right? So innovation is core today. It's very, very important. Now, how you innovate? So AI is actually one aid by which the managers can innovate today. Because the challenge of managers today is huge. There are so many touch points, there is so much data being generated, there is, time to market has reduced, right? Then there is a cost pressure. Given so many constraints, it's very difficult to innovate. So that's why people are looking forward to this kind of technology to innovate and remain competitive, right? And then, of course, develop new products and services. This is very, very important today, right? And this is also linked to innovation, the power of innovation. Your products and services can satisfy the customers only if you innovate, right? So that is why people are looking forward to AI. And using AI, you can also improve customer satisfaction because your value generation is actually improving. Right? And of course, there are some companies which adopt AI just because the competitor has already adopted, so they don't want to be left behind. So that is also one of the reasons for adopting AI. Now, so if you see overall, there is high expectation from AI, from the managers, right? Now, so if you are doing any of these things, right? So each of the items will require a transformation, right? That's very, very important to understand. And it's not easy, right? Now, I'm just showing you, the output of one of the surveys, and this is a 2019 survey, where the question this was done across globe, and the question that was asked to manager is the following. To what extent will the adoption of AI affect your organization's offering today and 5 years from now? So if you look at across the industry sector, average 15% managers believe that if they adopt AI today, it is going to affect their products or services, significantly. And after 5 years, 50-60% managers believe that the effect will be significant. So the managers are kind of convinced about the impact of AI on their offerings. The second question is also similar, where the question is like, to what extent will the adoption of AI affect your organization processes today and 5 years from now? So here, if you see, the response is kind of similar, right? So as I say, managers are kind of convinced that AI is going to impact their processes, their value generation, their people. Within 5 years, this is going to be a huge impact on the organization. So they have to be ready, they have to learn this technology, start pilot projects, and start adopting AI, right? So that's very important. So here we are showing that across industry, across all functional areas, the impact of AI is going to be significant, right? Now, there are multiple stages of AI adoption. If you want to adopt something new, you can't do it straight away, right? It has to go on through stages. So some, industries which are pioneers, some organizations, they're considered as pioneers. Why? Because they have adopted AI, they understand AI, and they have implemented the AI technology, in one or more business processes, right? So that's when we call these organizations as pioneers in AI adoption. Now, who are the investigators? Investigators are the organizations which understand the technology, but not done any pilot project yet. So these are investigators, and this forms a significant part of this population. And then there are experimenters who understand the technology and has done only one or two pilot projects, but not implemented AI in big business processes yet. And then, of course, there are passives who don't understand the technology and not interested in adopting that, right? So these are four categories which can be created in terms of AI adoption. And this is one more data point, in terms of AI adoption. So if you see approximately on the left side, if you just sum up, around 50%, of the companies survey, they have started using AI. So basically they understand AI and they have implemented AI in one or two business processes, or they are currently implementing them. And on the right hand side, if you see approximately 50%, they are basically planning to do the implementation in the future, right? So 50-50 kind of today. As of today, it's 50-50, right? Across the globe. Now, so these are, in terms of region-specific status of AI adoption. So if you see North America, Asia, Europe, they are leading in terms of multiple in operation, one in operation, and first in progress. So this is going to be a real driver, right? So industries have to be really, think about it at this point of time. Now, why adoption is less? There are many reasons. One of them, of course, is the knowledge of AI, because this is a new technology and managers don't understand it yet, right? So that's what is stopping them to adopt this. And the other reason, of course, is the clear business cases, right? You have to identify a specific use case where you can actually use AI to solve that problem. So it's very, very important, and managers are not very sure about it yet. So that's what's stopping them from adoption. Then there is legacy of it, right? People don't want to change, right? So that is a big resistance the organizations are, getting today in terms of AI adoption. Then there are manpower issues because there is a myth that if AI is adopted, then you have to reduce the manpower. So all those ethical issues are there. Then managers want to be very clear about ROI, right? If you invest so much, then what kind of ROI you are going to get from it? So that is also not very clear yet. So AI, evangelists, they talk about in terms of your value generation and all those things, but this has to be crisply captured, in terms of ROI. So that is the work to be done. And then, of course, there are other investments which has to be done and which are coming against this AI adoption. Now, there are several challenges we have seen, and the survey data also points to some of these challenges only. Now, having said that, let us move to the case studies. Now, although there are so many challenges, but yet companies are using AI, adopting AI. Now, here I want to showcase, from insurance sector, two examples. One related to insurance claim process transformation using AI, ML, and cloud, and the other is basically, the chatbot-based customer support and personalization. Right. So these two examples from the insurance sector. Then in manufacturing, I'm going to show you how predictive maintenance is picking up and how organizations like Rolls-Royce, they are using real-time predictive techniques, right, for maintenance. Then an e-commerce and digital commerce segment, I'm going to tell you about how Swiggy actually optimizes their logistics using AI/ML, and Netflix also does the personalization and content creation using AI/ML. And in retail, there are many examples, but I have picked up this fashion retail for this presentation, and I'm going to show you how AI ML is getting used in this segment. Now, before moving into that, keep this framework in mind. So whenever you are doing some transformation, you are doing transformation of a process or business using AI ML, this has these 5 stages, right? You start with use case identification. That's the first stage, right? The problem articulation has to be very, very clear. The problem you are going to solve using AI. The next step is the data ecosystem, right? You have to collect the right data for training the model. And then you go ahead and choose the tools and techniques, build the model, then you deploy the model, which is basically workflow integration. You put the model in the workflow, right, and replace the old workflow by the new workflow, right? And then, of course, you have to, create a culture of learning and adoption in the organization. You have to reskill the manpower, right? So that the technology is successful. People are using this. Otherwise, the technology is not going to be successful within the organization. So this is the framework you should keep in mind. Now, if you look at, so USAA is an insurance company which, provides auto insurance. Now, this is the process flow of a typical insurance claim, right? So it starts with the damage inspection by insurance agent. Right. The next stage is, of course, the damage analysis and estimation by technical expert. And this is entirely manual. So they basically check the photos and all that and then do the stuff. And the next step is estimate of analysis by the appraisers. And if there is some change, they do the change, make the change, and then generate the actual claim, which is approved by the appraisers. So this is the typical flow which used to be at USAA, right? Now, what they did, they wanted to transform this process, business process, right? So they tied up with Google and they actually used the Google Cloud and ML algorithms. And then they, completely automated, most of it was automated using those technologies. Now, let's see how the, the transformed flow looks like. So this is how it looks like today. So it starts with the image capture, right, of the damage, and then the images are sent to the Google Cloud. And in the cloud resides the ML, the machine learning models. They analyze the images and then they make damaged parts estimate. So this is the learning. They have this, learning. They have this knowledge. So by looking at the image, they can actually predict, the estimate by estimating the damage. So once they find the estimate, they send it to the third-party tech solution provider as well as to USAA. And the tech solution, the tech engineers, they actually map those estimate into real parts and then they convert it to a real estimate. And the next step is, so this part is to some extent manual, and but then still there is, the cycle time is much less here and automated because machine learning model has already done, the basic estimation, the manual part by image recognition, right? So the next step, the fourth step is USAA appraisers review the formal estimate and make changes as needed. And this is basically incorporated into the original estimate by the help of ML models, right? So this is again automated. And then finally the appraisers, basically approve the estimate generated by the ML model. And appraisers also send feedback to the the model team which manages the model or creates the model, so that the next time, if there was any flaw, that can be rectified. So it's a continuous learning which keeps on happening. Now if you see what kind of value this transformation has generated, so let us take one by one. This is fully automated, mostly automated, right, by use of this technology. And this is faster, this is more efficient, there is less chance of error because it's happening automatically and there are ML algorithms doing it rather than a human doing it, right? And there is better customer satisfaction because the cycle time, the throughput is reduced and errors are less. Now you can utilize the experts, the appraisers time, in a better fashion instead of, spending their time in analyzing the damages and all that. So that way the value creation for the customers as well as the internal stakeholders is improved, and you can do manpower reskilling also. So there is a chance of learning for the employees. So overall, if you see it, actually this simple change of this process led to, impact on the people, the processes and the value generation, right? So this is one example. And in the insurance sector, I am going to show you a small video where you are going to see how Policy Bazaar actually transformed the insurance sale and customer support using chatbots. So give me a second. I am just going to play one video for you.
This is
So you'll have to stop sharing this screen and then again reshare with the video.
Yeah, I'll just do that. Yeah.
This is Ashish Gupta. I am the CEO at DocPrime and the Chief Tech Evangelist at Policy Bazaar. Policy Bazaar is India's default insurance gateway. We've been revolutionizing how retail insurance is bought in this country. One of the biggest things to solve for us has been how do we communicate as effectively to customers over digital mediums as people would do in a face-to-face conversation, because that's been the tradition of insurance. I've personally been working with AWS for over a decade. When I came into Policy Bazaar, moving our entire infrastructure to the cloud, utilizing AWS's cutting-edge services was quite a natural choice. Some of the solutions they had were really, really advanced. So one of the solutions that we use in depth is a solution called Amazon Polly, which is basically a text-to-speech. Now, the good thing about Polly is that it not only works in English, it also works beautifully in Indian languages such as Hindi. For every customer, we can personalize, customize each message going out to the customer to send the message exactly at the right time. Ever since we've launched this solution, the number of customers who listen to the entire message has actually gone up by 20%. For customers, this is amazing. It's real time, it's when you want it, and it's in a manner that is very human-like. We've also now extended Polly to integrate with our NLP services and the chat interface to actually create what we believe is the only Hindi voice bot that exists today. We've released it for our motor insurance services piece, where we are now realizing that 75% of the time, the engine is able to detect what the customer wants and is able to route the customer to the right channels. And in about 15% of the cases, we are actually able to service the customer without ever having to get manual intervention in. It also eventually creates a forum for us where we can actually provide 24/7 services without having human beings involved at, let's say, 4 in the morning. With the voice bot built on Amazon Polly, the communication to the customer is that much more detailed. Customers can interact with our systems without any human interface. This is far better customer satisfaction and again, massive saving on customer servicing costs. The whole artificial intelligence layer is actually becoming the default. Now we're thinking of more and more business cases. How do we reach out to more customers? It's opening up a world of opportunities which the business guys now are latching onto. So now, interestingly, AI has not just become a tech tool, it's actually become a business tool. AWS for me is the perfect marriage between cutting-edge technology and great customer services. This enables perfect tools to be available, but also a perfect environment to utilize them.
Okay, so you see how these AI/ML technologies are being used today by Policybazaar. So let me go back to the presentation slides. So these are the functions which the chatbots are doing for Policybazaar today, right? Insurance is sold more effectively over digital media. It provides 24/7 service to the customer without manual intervention, routing of customers to correct channel effectively, ensures seamless handover to human support if needed, right? And so all these things are handled by the AI engine which AWS, the cloud, is providing. Now, moving on to another domain. So this is, application of AI in predictive maintenance, the machinery maintenance. So typically machines are, the maintenance is done at regular interval. But if suppose, a machine is, you cannot predict whether a machine is going to malfunction, right? So people are using predictive maintenance for detecting the malfunction which is going to occur. So there are a lot of advantages, right? It prevents the unscheduled downtime of machines. Then it prevents the casualties of workers, staff, and user, and ensures longer lifetime of assets and cost reduction, right? So that's why in factories, in big plants, there is a move towards predictive maintenance, and the cost is also reduced. Instead of doing it at regular intervals, which may be costlier, you can actually do it and based upon the predictive maintenance engines out, right? So I'm going to show you one more video clip where you can see how Rolls-Royce is actually using AI/ML and analytics for real-time predictive maintenance, right? So let me just stop sharing. Give me a second. I'm going to show you one more video.
Welcome to this demonstration of predictive maintenance for manufacturing, powered by the Microsoft Azure IoT Suite. To be successful, manufacturing organizations today must find ways to leverage the Internet of Things, or IoT, to help them reduce costs, improve innovation, and transform the way they do business. Azure IoT Suite Predictive Maintenance helps organizations connect sensors and systems to the cloud so they can gain insights from machine learning intelligence, proactively prevent issues from happening, and avoid unscheduled downtime. Let's look at an example of a predictive maintenance solution built on the Azure IoT Suite for an aircraft manufacturing company. This dashboard provides engineers with a consolidated view of one airline's fleet, including key operational performance indicators, scheduled flights and maintenance, and an early watch list that draws from predictive analytics to escalate advisories for aircraft that may need attention. For example, you can see that there's an aircraft in the watch list with a red alert status. Let's take a look. Drilling down, you get an operational overview of the aircraft, including the flight variance, remaining useful life of the engines, and recommended fuel levels, all of which are constantly monitored to ensure efficient operations. You can also see the status of the aircraft's critical systems. Currently, one of those, the propulsion system, is showing an advisory. Let's drill deeper. This page provides engine details and information needed to optimize the engine wash schedule, as well as a service history pulled from Microsoft Dynamics 365. This allows coordination between maintenance teams and supervisors. You can also see a list of critical engine systems and their status. In this case, the primary fuel pump is showing a warning advisory. To decide whether to expedite service, let's get more information. In this view, you get graphical visualizations of complex analytics drawn from Power BI, indicating several factors contributing to the early degradation of this fuel pump. In the schedule on the right, you can see that maintenance isn't scheduled for a couple of days. To repair the pump and prevent costly unscheduled downtime, let's request maintenance now. When you initiate a maintenance request, a series of workflows is created in Dynamics 365, immediately dispatching a maintenance team and ensuring that the aircraft will continue to operate safely and without delay. The Azure IoT Suite makes it easy to enable your own predictive maintenance solution in the cloud. Simply use the button.
Yeah, so you can see how AIML and dashboarding using BI, which is used for predictive maintenance. Let me go back to the presentation now. Okay, so how we are doing in terms of time, Anju? Can I take 5 minutes? I'll just finish in 5
Sure,
minutes.
sir. Not a
Yeah,
problem at
okay.
all. Please.
Yeah. So let me give you one more example from hyperlocal domain, which is Swiggy, right? In Swiggy, they use AIML a lot. Let me tell you. So they have a platform called Vidura, right? And they use this analytics platform to manage their logistics, right? The delivery. So they have 2 lakh drivers and 1 lakh restaurant, 1.5 million orders per day. They manage, right? So this data is pre-COVID, right? So I think post-COVID that may have gone up. So this is a huge, number of drivers and restaurants and number of deliveries they have to manage. So they use Vidura platform for that. Now they have maps which are more accurate than Google Maps, right? And they use ML algorithms to predict the time of delivery. So as soon as an order is booked, they actually predict the time of delivery. So they have a trained algorithm, ML algorithm, which can do that. They also match the delivery drivers with the orders, right? To ensure that the orders reach, quickest possible time, right? So those things are done automatically by the engine. And these things have actually reduced their delivery time by 4 minutes, which is great actually for that hyperlocal market, right? And then they do other stuff like they actually read the customer address using NLP. They, tag this address using a geocode, and then they take feedback from the delivery person to make it, better. So this kind of analytics they are using at Swiggy, and optimizing their logistics. Now, if we see another application, Netflix, for example. So this is a completely digital business, right? So their product is also digital. Now they use AIML for content creation, content selection, personalization, right? And that's also very interesting story. So I will just quickly show you one small video. Second.
At Netflix Netflix, we have over 120 million members. They span the whole globe across 190 different countries, as well as a diversity of titles, content, comedies, and dramas.
Machine learning is deeply intertwined with all aspects of Netflix's business, how we compose our catalog of content, how we produce our content, how we encode it, how we stream it.
We use machine learning to help marketing efforts and advertising efforts, and then we also use machine learning in our content acquisition efforts.
Traditional entertainment companies, they didn't have the data that we have. So when we think about what are the gaps in our current content offering, what are titles that might be interesting to us, we're able to provide insight into new audiences that might not be traditionally served and go out and look for content that might appeal to them.
Some really exciting and novel areas are leveraging it for optimizing the production of our originals.
We find a lot of these productions are really gold mines of data. And what we find is there are various steps where important decisions can be supported by machine learning-driven insights.
Machine learning is used in a real product. So what's very important is to find the right objectives to optimize. For example, if you think about personalization, we want to be able to find proper metrics and labels for our algorithms so that when we optimize them, it actually enhances users' experience.
It's very exciting to know that the models that you're working on really can have an impact to such a large number of members all across the world enjoying our content and really optimizing their joy, which is a great feeling.
We are very much at the nexus of art and science, and we're working with people who are ultimately going to make these decisions, and we're supporting them with information that comes from machine learning. The combination is really powerful and super fun.
Each of our teams is generally a very diverse team in terms of the skill set that they bring to the table. Theoretical machine learning, computer vision, deep software engineers.
Everyone really just wants to work together. It's very easy to go to other places where you get to work on great research, but you don't see that research translated through interactions with other teams that are more product-facing teams and engineering teams.
It's not often that you get to see a transformation of an entire industry, and to be that agent is even rare. And Netflix has been that agent on a few occasions in its short history. So it just is a wonderful feeling being part of that.
Okay, let me go back to the presentation. Yeah, so you have seen, how Netflix is using AI ML for, all those activities. It's a completely AI ML driven, organization. Now, in fashion industry, this comes from the retail industry. There is, a lot of use of AI ML based techniques. So one of these is smart mirrors, where people use augmented reality, AI ML algorithms for smart trials. And then recommend wardrobe as per customer preference, body shape, interact with customers to actually find out their preferences. And then there are the design generation automatically. So if you are you see these designs of products, so these are actually machine generated. So earlier it used to be created by people. Now a machine is actually creating. So advanced AI techniques like generative adversarial network, GAN, is actually used for generating the models, right? So there is huge application of this kind of techniques in fashion retail also. So the list is endless, right? I have just listed some of them, but the applications of AI ML currently in every sector is huge. But there are challenges as well. That some challenges we have discussed, in previous slides. There are some more bigger challenges. So one of them is to ensure, the good quality data for training models, because your model is as good as the data that you provide as input, right? And another challenge is that, the scarcity of good data. So people are looking for, the techniques where, the models can be built by using less amount of data. So that's why people are shifting towards reinforcement learning, transfer learning, all those techniques, right, in AI, where the model can be built using less amount of data. So this is one challenge. And then, of course, ensuring that the data set is unbiased and balanced. This is very, very important. This comes from the ethical AI domain, right? Then, of course, there are so many laws today, GDPR, then federal laws, data privacy, data security, and essentially in machine learning, you have to use the user data, right? So you have to ensure, the organizations have to ensure these things, right? Data privacy, security, data governance, and that's a lot of overhead in terms of cost for organizations, right? So these things are also, resisting them to make investment in AI adoption. And there is a push towards explainable AI. So one of the reasons why AI is not adopted by some managers today is because you cannot explain why a particular decision is being taken. For example, let's say you have created a neural network model to predict the share price, right? So you get an output that, okay, this is going to be the share price, tomorrow. But then why it is so, you don't understand that. The neural network is a black box to you, right? So if the manager actually don't understand why the decision is being taken, then there is a reluctance in using that kind of technology. So there is more push towards creating AI solutions which are explainable, where you explain the outcome to the user, right? So that's how the people are trying to address these challenges and ensure the adoption of AI ML happens across industries and lead to business transformation. Right? So I will stop here now, and I will pass over to Nisha to share her experience. It's over to you, Nisha.
Yes, sir.
So let me stop sharing.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Nisha. I am currently a second year MBA student at Flame University. I am majoring in finance and my minor is operations. So, to start with, first of all of us tend to get really scared upon listening tools like R, Python, and words like coding that we use in data analytics. Initially, even I was like that, and I also had a cold feet. But Swapnajit sir made this process very seamless for me and designed the courses in a way that is relevant for us to know, basically for business students. Hence, making learning and application very, very easy. Analyzing data can be really creative. It's not just about working with numbers, it's also about what exactly do we want from it. It's about asking the right questions and seeing through the data. And it has very less to do with the number crunching capability, to be honest. When we hear the term data analytics, we all tend to think that this is a lot about numbers and a lot about mathematics and a lot about economics and that kind of knowledge. Well, it's not true. To step into the world of data analysis, one can also go ahead with good interpretation skills, good imagination skills, and a thorough knowledge about their tools and codes. All the math is basically done by the codes, trust me. Our job is to be good interpreters and creative thinkers. In fact, currently in our batch of analytics, I have classmates from all the domains, say marketing, finance, operations, and economics. I have done courses like business analytics and AI and ML with my professor. With business analytics, we learn data visualization techniques like Power BI and Tableau, and basic regression techniques on RStudio. And in the second level, we learned advanced regression techniques like ridge regression and lasso regression. The teaching pattern that I went through with Swapnajit sir was more like learning about the technique and then applying it in one class itself. We first learn about the model in theory, and then understand a real-time data set and consequently apply the technique on the data set. Since we use real-time data sets, the whole process becomes even more interesting and fun. We are also given projects wherein we need to carry on primary research to form a data set and then apply models in them. For instance, in the last term, I chose a data set which had financial ratios of various organizations. And I tried to predict company bankruptcy through it. The problem statement I chose was of how applying machine learning of financial ratios can improve the performance of a firm. Not only improving, but send a warning signal as well in case of any red flags coming in future. Financial analysis is the key to knowing about an organization's performance, be it in long term or in short term. Most of the times, they can also be the trendsetter for the industry. Last but not the least, the most important task that they do is of producing red flags well in advance so that the organization can adopt a corrective action based on the data analyzed. Even though there's a lot of manpower in place to carry out such tasks, but organizations are increasingly taking leverage of the new trends and technology available to them. And if major firms don't adapt to this change, their management might turn obsolete and the business might not be able to enjoy the competitive edge which other firms might leverage on. That's what Sir mentioned in his slides before. Now, after a term like 2 months of learning tools and techniques, the design of the course is such that we tend to ask the right questions at the end when we need to do projects. And when we do descriptive and predictive analysis on a real-time data sets. Hence, as a candidate pursuing an MBA with a specialization in the field of finance, in this century, which is set in the acme of digital convergence, the new age finance arena has always attracted me and fueled my interest towards how data analytics and finance can come together to help every business. Currently, while pursuing an MBA in finance, I also interned with Jones Lang LaSalle, JLL, as part of my summer internship program and got the opportunity to understand the real estate business in detail and handle their supply-related data. During my 2-month duration with them, I used business intelligence tools like Power BI and Tableau, which they had no knowledge of. And they were really impressed by this. And I also effectively produced data points which could be further used by them to pitch to their clients. I improved their data management efficiency by 60% to give an approximate number through these business intelligence tools. And also currently I'm interning with Axe Capital, wherein I am researching about various mutual funds and mutual fund houses. And I'm trying to find factors which affect a person's investing pattern through regression analysis to add value to it. It has really helped me a lot to take my knowledge a level above in terms of understanding the world of finance. That's it from my side. Open to questions.
Yeah, thank you, Nisha. So it's over to you, Anju.
Thank you so much, Professor Chakrabarti and Nisha. I believe it has been indeed a very detailed presentation on how AI and ML have been transforming businesses across. So I would like, we're almost at 7, so I'm going to ask participants to just check up. In case if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. I'll try and see if we can bring at least 1 or 2 questions to speakers as well. Before I start off, I wanted to also sort of check up because we had someone who texted me a question for you earlier. What is the future for businesses? How do they then start to make their strategies? Because considering that we're talking about AI and ML, obviously technologies are transient. We often see that it's not technologies that are discovering markets, it's actually markets that discover technologies. So when you're talking about such transient nature of technology, then how do companies actually prepare for this? Because AI and ML, like you mentioned in your presentation, is something that is going to incur cost on a yearly basis. May not be as huge as what a physical intervention may, but at least at some point of time, what if the technology totally goes out of there? Then how do companies prepare for that when they're planning for their future?
Yeah, I think this is a very relevant question. I think that is the reason why, companies are reluctant about, investing in this technology. One thing I always recommend is that you start with a pilot project. So you identify the use case. It's not necessary that you adopt the technology, suddenly, right? So you have to do some homework. That is very, very important. So you pick up a specific use case, a specific problem that can be related to a specific business process, right, within your organization. And then you try to solve it using these technologies. See, these technologies, AI technologies are very, very old technologies. See, the neural network, decision trees, they have not changed. For last 50, 60 years, these technologies have been there, right? Only thing which has changed that we have more computing power today. So that's why we can actually build a machine learning model more efficient, right? So as you mentioned, the technology is not going to change. Be assured about that. So that is one thing. So you can do a pilot project. And second thing is, of course, you have to get the right kind of data. I think that is very important. So unless you ensure that you have access to right kind of data, so you should, if you don't have that, framework or infrastructure rather, you should go ahead and invest in data infrastructure now. And then that will, and you change the data capture process by the organization so that you have the right kind of data, so that if that is ensured, I think your 50%, 60% of the problem is solved. Then your
Okay.
AI models will actually help you, and in terms of cost, I don't think this is a problem today because most of the tools are open source today. For example, Python, R, so you can actually hire, software engineers. They can actually build the logic for you, and everything is free of cost. You have to just pay for that person, right? And then over time, the investment is minimal. So you have to just update your models with data, and then you get the right kind of output.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. We have one question from Adit, who mentioned that could you please mention how business analytics can be useful or what the career prospects in aviation is if you have a degree in business analytics or you have a base. I think we'd say for everyone else is if you have a good base in business analytics or analytics per se as well, how can that be useful in maybe aviation or any other of those fields?
Okay, so I think this relates to one of the video I just showed you. It was precisely about aviation industry, right? And you see how they have used, so this dashboard, what you saw is basically Power BI, which is similar to Tableau, right? So if you learn business analytics, you will be taught, this Tableau, Power BI, all this dashboarding tool by which you create the visuals, you create the stories, right? You create the dashboards, right? And these dashboards are real time, right? So one application you saw in the video, right? How they are doing the predictive maintenance using the dashboard and, the AI ML algorithms, right? Because this is a predictive algorithm, so that's why they have to use the ML algorithms, right? So this is one way. And of course, in terms of like application in the factory where you are actually, manufacturing the aviation components, let's say, there also you can use the business analytics and AI ML for quality control. That can be one of the ways you can actually add value, right? So that you can actually do this automated assembly line, which are very, very popular these days, and lot of applications involving IoT, is coming up in, especially in the context of factory setting, right? So IoT based edge analytics, right? So those things are there. So there is, there are so many areas where you can apply your knowledge if you have a background in business analytics, even in aviation sector.
Okay. I'm going to ask the next question to Nisha. Nisha, you'd mentioned that you'd interned with Jones LaSalle and you'd also had the opportunity to sort of put across your, your learnings into the real estate business. Can you take us through a little bit on that? What exactly were the projects like? How were you able to take the AI part into your internship as well?
So actually my job was to like understand their data. That was really huge. And initially they used to manage their data over Excel. And they used to extract data points from Excel and make PPTs to pitch it to their clients. After I transformed the whole process of loading data on BI and then coming up with visualizations, which took only seconds, with cross-filtering techniques and everything, it made the process of like an hour or two reduced to 15-20 minutes. And that's what I gained there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to take one last question here from Manish. Manish wanted to know, sir, how can we use AI and ML in the publication domain?
Okay. So in publication domain, I think this is related to applying AI ML in text analytics, right? So publication relates to text, and text is an unstructured data, right? So, when we talk about natural language processing, this is precisely, this text domain we are talking about. So where you can actually, use AI ML to find out plagiarism, right? So for example, if you are a publication house and you have an author and you are going to publish his or her book, you can actually use AI ML to find out whether there is a similar document existing already. And doing this manually, it is very, very difficult, right? But if you have all this, so you have digitized form of books, which are available with you, and you can use to find the similarity using AI ML. and that way it can help you to detect the plagiarism. There can be, in terms of creating the content also, you can use AI/ML, right? So for example, you are thinking about what picture should you put in a particular page, let's say. So the AI/ML can help you to generate an appropriate image or a picture, based upon the data you feed to it. So let's say you input some text, right, which is maybe corresponding to that particular page, and some pages before and after that page. So based upon that context, it can actually generate some good picture for you, right? So that can be another way of doing creative designs, and even text generation also it can help you. So there are many ways you can actually use these techniques. Yes.
All right. Okay. And I think I'm going to take one last question that I've received here. And this is a question to both you and Nisha, from your perspectives, as a perspective from professor and as a student as well. I know that Nisha had mentioned earlier in her presentation that you do not really require a base in, AI, or you don't really require a base in coding, Python, and so on and so forth. You just need to come and interpret it. But from the standpoint of a professor, what would be your advice for management aspirants, as well as I believe managerial professionals as well, who are at their early stage careers, as to what are the things that they should keep in mind? What are the skills that they need to focus in case if they have to start using AI and ML for their line of work? And Nisha, I think from your end as well, I'd want to know, as a student, what do you think are the skill sets that would have helped you if you'd come in earlier, or maybe if you have some juniors who are planning to join in now, who are planning to your incoming juniors now, you could probably tell them that this is the piece of advice that I wish I had known before I joined an MBA program. So both on those lines, particularly nice. So maybe you can go first.
Yeah. So see, you have to first decide. So I'm assuming that you are going to be an MBA aspirant, right? So MBA aspirant definitely is not going to code, right? So that is not expected, and the industry which will be hiring you, they are not expecting you to code, right? So you don't have to worry about that part, coding part, first thing. What you have to understand is that your data analysis skill is very important. So anyway, you are doing the data analysis using spreadsheet. So your basic maths and statistics should be fine, right? I say basic, not advanced. Basic things you are taught in MBA first year. So that background is sufficient, right? So that is one thing. And you have to be a little bit creative. So you are a manager, think about it. So, you give some input data to a model, you get some output, right? Now, after that, you have to decide whether to accept that and go ahead with that, or you apply your experience also. So what I always recommend, and I, talk to the students or my friends or, others in industry, I tell them that, predictive analytics or AI/ML gives you a solution. That's fine. But that doesn't mean that your managerial experience is, null and void. Please try to, those skills are very, very important. Your bigger perspective, your understanding of the market, that is very, very important. You use that also, right? So that is going to be very important. So just don't worry about coding and maths if you want to do well in an industry which has adopted AI. Please don't. You have to understand the technology. You have to understand, what kind of data you are going to feed, what kind of output you are getting, right? How you should analyze the ROI, right? So those kind of things you should understand, but you don't have to understand the basic algorithm as such. Some basic knowledge, that's it. You are done.
All right.
So that is my.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Nisha?
So me, especially coming from a field of finance and like talking to my classmates as well who have different fields in specialization, I believe that we as students need to know that in the field that we are working and where we are learning, how to connect it with the data analytics. Because if we are like only learning data analytics and not connecting it to what we are learning in our specializations, it won't make any sense. Yeah, and rest what sir said is very, very true, that we really don't need to, go into numbers and everything. We just need to be very sure of like what tools we are using, how we are reading the results of codes, and how we are, twisting them or tweaking them according to our own perspective. Yeah, that's
all right. Okay. Thank you so much, Nisha, and thank you so much, Professor Chakraborty, for a wonderful presentation today. I think this has been very detailed and also very helpful for students who've been, I think there's a lot of confusion even now, specifically that I see when I'm talking to students who are looking at operations as a field, that, how do I fit in analytics? So there's no fitting in. You don't need to worry. You don't need to code, like Nisha said. You don't need to, you don't need to know your Pythons, and likewise, you can just go ahead and be good interpreters and the way that you use it forward. So thank you so much once again to both Professor as well as Nisha, and audience, thank you so much for staying with us for a long time. We will be conducting our last masterclass for this season on the 16th of April, and we will come back with you on more information on the same for that as well. Till then, thank you so much once again for joining us today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Nisha. Thank you, Anju.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.